The air crackled with the weight of unspoken words as Elias stood frozen, his heart a battlefield of hope and dread. 7 years of devotion, of standing by Roman's side through every storm, and now this, a single sentence that shattered his world. "I'm sorry, Elias, but I need an heir, and you can't give me that." New Orleans was alive with its usual chaos, jazz spilling from Bourbon Street, the scent of beignet mingling with the Mississippi's briny breath. Elias Carter, 32, a graphic designer with a sharp wit and a heart too big for his own good, navigated the city's vibrant pulse with ease. His life hadn't always been this colorful. Growing up in a small Alabama town, he'd learned early to hide parts of himself, his quiet strength, his love for men, to survive. But New Orleans had welcomed him, a black beta with dreams bigger than his past, and given him a home. 7 years ago, at a crowded art gallery opening in the French Quarter, Elias met Roman Alvarez, a 35-year-old alpha, an heir to a sprawling shipping empire. Roman was everything Elias wasn't: bold, commanding, with a Latino heritage that carried the warmth of his Puerto Rican roots and the steel of his ambition. His dark eyes held a spark that drew Elias in, like a moth to a flame that promised both light and ruin. Their first conversation, over cheap wine and abstract paintings, stretched into hours. Roman's laughter was a melody Elias hadn't known he'd been searching for. They became inseparable. Roman, the alpha with a legacy to uphold, and Elias, the beta who grounded him. Their relationship wasn't just love, it was a partnership. Elias designed the branding for Roman's company, sat through endless board meetings, and held Roman's hand when his father's death left him reeling. They built a life together in a renovated Creole townhouse, filled with plants Elias tended and books Roman devoured. But beneath the surface, the world they lived in, a society obsessed with alphas, betas, and omegas, cast a shadow. Betas couldn't bear children. It was a fact Elias had always known, one he'd accepted long before Roman. Yet, as the years passed, whispers grew louder. Roman's family, his board, his legacy, they all demanded an heir. An omega, they said, was the answer. Elias pushed the thought aside, trusting Roman's promises. "It's you and me, always." But trust, like glass, could crack under pressure. One humid evening, as they sat on their balcony overlooking the Garden District, Roman's phone buzzed with a message from his mother, Isabella. Her words were sharp, even through the screen. "The board is restless. You need an omega, Roman. Tradition matters." Elias caught the flicker of guilt in Roman's eyes before he turned away, claiming it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was the first thread unraveling. The next day, Elias overheard a conversation at Roman's office. A new omega intern, Luca Marin, had caught everyone's attention. At 25, Luca was a radiant presence, Italian-American, with soft curls and a smile that disarmed even the coldest executives. He was everything Elias wasn't: an omega, fertile, capable of giving Roman the heir his empire demanded. Elias felt a pang, not of jealousy, but of fear. He saw the way Roman's gaze lingered on Luca, the way his voice softened when they spoke. It was subtle, but Elias knew Roman's every nuance. That night, Elias confronted him. "Is there something you're not telling me?" His voice trembled, betraying the calm he tried to project. Roman's silence was louder than any answer. Finally, he spoke, his words careful. "Luca's just an intern, Elias. You're overthinking this." But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew with every glance. Every late-night meeting Roman claimed was just business. Weeks turned into months, and the tension between them thickened. Elias threw himself into his work, designing a campaign for Roman's company that won awards but felt hollow. Roman grew distant, his touches less frequent, his laughter forced. Elias began to notice Luca's presence more, his scent, his easy charm, the way he seemed to fit into Roman's world effortlessly. The city that had once felt like their sanctuary now felt like a cage. One evening, at a gala hosted by Roman's company, the truth hit like a tidal wave. Elias stood in a tailored suit, smiling for the cameras, when he saw Roman and Luca across the room. They were laughing, their shoulders brushing, and for a moment, Roman's hand rested on Luca's arm. The world slowed. Elias's heart pounded as he realized what he'd been denying. Roman was slipping away. He left the gala without a word, walking the streets of New Orleans until his feet ached. The city's vibrancy mocked him, its colors too bright, its music too loud. He stopped by the Mississippi, staring at the water's dark ripples. 7 years. He'd given Roman everything, his loyalty, his love, his trust. And now, it wasn't enough. When he returned home, Roman was waiting, his face a mask of guilt and resolve. "Elias, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. Elias's chest tightened. He knew what was coming, but nothing could prepare him for the words that followed. "I'm sorry, Elias, but I need an heir, and you can't give me that." The room spun. Elias gripped the edge of the couch, his knuckles whitening. "So what? You're choosing Luca because he's an Omega? Because he can give you a child?" His voice cracked, raw with pain. Roman looked away, his jaw tight. "It's not just about me. It's the company, my family, the legacy. I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice," Elias whispered, tears burning his eyes. "You're choosing them over us." The silence that followed was deafening. Elias walked out, the door slamming behind him, carrying the weight of 7 years crumbling to dust. Elias didn't go far. He couldn't. New Orleans was woven into his soul, its humid air and crooked streets a map of his life with Roman. He crashed at a friend's loft in the Bywater, a small space cluttered with art supplies and vinyl records. His friend, Amara, a 30-year-old non-binary photographer with a knack for seeing through people's facades, didn't ask questions. They just handed him a beer and said, "You're allowed to feel this, Elias. Don't bottle it up." But bottling it up was all Elias knew. He'd spent his life proving he was enough. Enough as a beta, enough as a black man in a world that often told him otherwise. Now, the one person who'd made him feel whole was choosing someone else. Not for love, but for duty. That hurt worse. Days blurred into weeks. Elias avoided Roman's calls, his texts, the flowers delivered to Amara's door with notes begging for a chance to explain. He threw himself into freelance work, designing logos for local businesses, but every stroke of his pen felt like a lie. He couldn't create beauty when his heart was breaking. One afternoon, while sketching in a cafe on Magazine Street, Elias saw Luca. He was alone, sipping coffee, his expression softer than Elias expected. Against his better judgment, Elias approached. "You're Luca, right?" His voice was steady, but his hands shook. Luca looked up, startled, then nodded. "Yeah, and you're Elias." His tone wasn't hostile, just knowing. They sat in awkward silence before Luca spoke again. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't ask for it." Elias wanted to hate him, but Luca's sincerity disarmed him. "Then why are you still here?" he asked, his voice low. Luca sighed, running a hand through his curls. "Roman's under pressure. His family, the board, they're relentless. I'm just convenient." He paused, his eyes meeting Elias's. "But I see the way he talks about you. He loves you, Elias. He's just lost." The words stung. Elias wanted to believe them. But love wasn't enough when legacy trumped everything. He left the cafe, his chest tight, and wandered to Jackson Square. Street performers danced, tourists laughed, but Elias felt like a ghost. He sat on a bench, staring at a tarot reader's sign, "Know your future." He didn't want to know. He was terrified of it. Meanwhile, Roman was unraveling. His days were filled with meetings, his nights with guilt. Luca was kind, talented, and undeniably an Omega, but he wasn't Elias. Roman missed the way Elias's laugh filled a room, the way his steady presence made the world make sense. But the pressure was crushing. His mother, Isabella, was relentless, arranging dinners with Omega families, each one a reminder of what Roman owed his lineage. The board whispered about stability, about securing the Alvarez name. Roman felt like a puppet, his strings pulled by a legacy he didn't choose. One night, desperate for clarity, Roman drove to Amara's loft. Elias wasn't there, but Amara didn't hold back. "You're breaking him, Roman," they said, their voice sharp. 7 years, and you're throwing it away for what? A kid you don't even love? Roman flinched. "It's not that simple. You don't understand the pressure." "Then make me understand." Amara snapped. "Because right now, you're choosing a ghost over the man who's been your rock." Roman left, their words echoing in his head. He drove to the levee, staring at the Mississippi's dark current. He'd always thought love could conquer anything, but now he wasn't sure. He pulled out his phone, typing a message to Elias. "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" He hit send, but the message stayed unread. Elias, meanwhile, was grappling with his own choices. Amara urged him to move on, to reclaim his life, but letting go felt like betraying himself. He started attending a local support group for betas, a space where he could be honest about his pain. There, he met Javier, a 34-year-old Mexican-American beta who ran a community center in Treem. Javier's warmth and resilience reminded Elias of who he used to be, before Roman, before the doubt. One evening, Javier invited Elias to a poetry slam at the community center. The room buzzed with voices, each poem raw and real. Elias hadn't planned to speak, but something broke free. He took the mic, his voice trembling at first, then steady. "I gave him 7 years," he said, "but I forgot to save some of me for myself." The crowd snapped their fingers, their support a lifeline. Javier's smile from the back of the room felt like a spark. But even as Elias tried to rebuild, Roman's shadow lingered. Late one night, Elias found a letter slipped under Amara's door. Roman's handwriting was unmistakable. "I'm trying to fix this, Elias. Please, give me a chance." Elias's heart wavered, but he didn't reply. Not yet. The New Orleans summer was relentless, its heat pressing against Elias like a physical weight. He'd started spending more time at Javier's community center, helping with art workshops for kids. Their laughter, their unfiltered joy, reminded him of what he'd lost. Not just Roman, but himself. Javier was a steady presence, never pushing, always listening. One night, as they cleaned paintbrushes side by side, Javier said, "You're stronger than you think, Elias. You're finding your way." Elias wanted to believe him, but Roman's letter burned in his pocket. He hadn't opened it again since that first night, afraid of what it might say, or what it might make him feel. He was tired of being torn between hope and heartbreak. Across town, Roman was fighting his own battles. Luca had become a fixture in his life, not by choice but by circumstance. Isabella had orchestrated it perfectly. Luca was now Roman's assistant, always nearby, always the solution to the board's demands. But every time Luca smiled, Roman saw Elias's face instead. He started skipping family dinners, ignoring Isabella's calls. The empire he'd inherited felt like a noose. One evening, Roman attended a charity event at the community center, hoping to see Elias. He stood in the back, watching Elias guide a group of kids through a mural project. Elias's laugh, soft but genuine, hit Roman like a punch. He hadn't heard that sound in months. When their eyes met, Elias froze, his smile fading. Roman took a step forward, but Javier appeared, placing a hand on Elias's shoulder. The gesture was subtle, protective, and it cut Roman deeper than any words could. After the event, Roman cornered Elias outside. "Can we talk? Please." His voice was raw, desperate. Elias hesitated, then nodded. They walked to a nearby park, the air thick with the scent of magnolias. Roman spoke first. "I messed up, Elias. I let them get in my head, my family, the board. But I don't want Luca. I want you." Elias's heart ached, but he wasn't the same man who'd walked out months ago. "You say that now, Roman, but what happens when the pressure comes back? When they remind you I'm not enough?" His voice was steady, but tears glistened in his eyes. "You are enough," Roman said, stepping closer. "You've always been enough." "Then why wasn't I?" Elias's voice broke. 7 years, Roman. I gave you everything, and you chose a future I can't be part of." Roman reached for him, but Elias stepped back. "I need time," Elias said. "I need to figure out who I am without you." Roman watched him walk away, the weight of his choices crushing him. He knew he'd lost something irreplaceable, but he wasn't ready to give up. Elias, meanwhile, was finding pieces of himself he'd forgotten. The support group became his anchor, Javier his compass. One night, at a quiet bar in the Marigny, Javier shared his own story. A childhood in a conservative family, a life spent proving his worth as a beta. "You don't need Roman to define you," Javier said. "You're already whole." Elias felt a spark, not of romance, but of possibility. He started painting again, not for clients, but for himself. Vibrant canvases filled with the colors of New Orleans, the pain of his past, the hope of his future. He wasn't healed, but he was healing. Roman, desperate to make things right, started defying his family. He rejected Isabella's matchmaking, told the board he'd step down if they pushed the heir issue further. He began attending therapy, unraveling the expectations that had choked him for years. He wrote Elias another letter, longer this time, pouring out his regrets, his love, his promises to do better. He didn't send it. Not yet. One stormy night, as thunder rolled over the city, Elias found himself at the community center, helping Javier board up windows. The rain poured, and they laughed, soaked to the bone. For the first time in months, Elias felt light. When Javier's hand brushed his, Elias didn't pull away. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something real. But fate wasn't done with them. The next morning, Roman showed up at the community center, his face pale, his eyes red. "Elias, I'm done letting them control me," he said. "I told the board I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us." Elias stared at him, torn between the past and the present. Javier stood nearby, silent but supportive. The rain had stopped, but the storm inside Elias was just beginning. Elias stood in the community center's courtyard, Roman's words echoing in his ears. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft glow over the city, but Elias felt no warmth. Roman's declaration, "I'm choosing us," was everything he'd wanted to hear months ago. Now, it felt like a weight, pulling him back to a love that had nearly destroyed him. "Say something, Elias," Roman pleaded, his voice rough with emotion. "I know I hurt you, but I'm here now. I'm fighting for us." Elias's gaze drifted to Javier, who stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable but kind. Javier had been his anchor, a reminder that he could stand on his own. But Roman was his past, his heart, his 7 years of everything. Elias's chest tightened as he realized the truth. This wasn't just about love. It was about who he wanted to be. "I need to think," Elias said finally, his voice steady but soft. "I can't do this right now." Roman nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'll wait, Elias. As long as it takes." Elias walked away, his mind a storm of memories. He remembered their first kiss under a Mardi Gras float, the way Roman's hand fit perfectly in his. He remembered the nights they'd stayed up talking, dreaming of a future where they could just be. But he also remembered the pain, the doubt, the moment Roman had chosen duty over him. He wandered to the French Quarter, the streets alive with tourists and buskers. Sitting on a bench in Jackson Square, Elias pulled out Roman's unsent letter, the one he'd found at Amaris. The words were raw, unguarded. "I was a coward, Elias. I let their voices drown out yours. But you're my home, and I'll spend every day proving it if you'll let me." Tears blurred his vision. He wanted to believe Roman, but trust was a fragile thing, and his was still mending. He thought of Javier, of the quiet strength they'd built together, not as lovers, but as something undefined, something possible. For the first time, Elias realized he had a choice, not just between Roman and Javier, but between the man he'd been and the man he could become. That night, Elias invited Roman to the Creole townhouse they'd once shared. The air was thick with tension as they sat across from each other, the space between them heavy with history. "I loved you with everything I had," Elias began, his voice steady. "But I lost myself in you, Roman. I can't do that again." Roman's face crumpled, but he nodded. "I know. I failed you. But I'm trying to be better. For you. For us." Elias took a deep breath. "I don't know if us exists anymore. Not the way it did. But I don't want to hate you, and I don't want to lose what we were. I need to choose me first." Roman reached for his hand, and this time, Elias let him. Their fingers intertwined, a familiar warmth that broke Elias's heart all over again. "I'll always love you," Roman said, his voice breaking, "even if it's from a distance." They sat in silence, the weight of 7 years settling around them. Elias knew he wasn't ready to forgive, not fully, but he felt a spark of peace. He wasn't defined by Roman's choices or society's expectations. He was enough. In the weeks that followed, Elias leaned into his new life. He took on a leadership role at the community center, his art workshops becoming a beacon for kids who felt unseen. Javier was there, not as a replacement for Roman, but as a friend, a partner in rebuilding. They never defined what they were, and that was okay. Elias was learning to live for himself. Roman kept his promise. He stepped back from the company, passing leadership to a cousin who didn't carry the same burdens. He started a foundation for queer youth, pouring his wealth into something that mattered. He and Elias didn't reconcile, not as lovers, but they found a fragile peace. They'd meet for coffee sometimes, their conversations careful but kind, a testament to a love that had shaped them both. One evening, as Elias stood on the levee, watching the Mississippi's current, he felt a quiet strength. He wasn't the beta who'd hidden himself to survive, nor the man who'd given everything to Roman. He was Elias Carter, whole and enough, carving his own legacy in a world that had tried to define him. The city hummed around him, its heartbeat steady. Elias smiled, knowing he'd found his own.